Hello, everyone.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Silas, and this is The Adventures of Kayla and Silas, a podcast about everything travel. Each week, we cover travel topics that we find interesting and that we hope you will too. This week, we have a very special guest, Ashley. She and I went to undergrad together, and she has traveled a lot around the world and outer space. She's nodding.
Hi, Ashley. Hey there.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yay.
We're very excited to have you. We have several questions for you today about all the adventures you've had because you really have honestly traveled a lot of different places. And we want to learn all about that and also learn about some of the advice that you have for travelers who are looking to do similar trips to you as you for you in the future.
Perfect.
Great words.
Prepositions aren't your forte.
Not today. So the very first question that we have for you, very simple. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your travel background.
Perfect. All right. Well, I am an Iowa girl. Grew up in Southeast Iowa and went to Iowa State University for my undergrad. Woo! And when I was there, I wanted to really experience different things in terms of travel and being outside the United States and a lot of things like that. And so during my sophomore year in college, I took a semester abroad to Australia. But I wanted to go to a place that was not the norm in Australia. So I chose to go to the tiny island state of Tasmania, which a lot of people thought, okay, Tasmania, you're going to Africa? I'm like, no, that's Tanzania, people. So that kind of schooled some people too.
Very close, very similar in basically no ways.
Yeah. So I went to Tasmania for a semester and came back to Iowa State after my semester abroad and got addicted to it and started working.
As one does.
They do. And started working in the Study Abroad Center, which as a GB LAM, a global ambassador.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of figured out more opportunities to go abroad again and did an exchange this time in Stockholm, Sweden for another semester. And that was during my first senior year and a semester during my fourth year. So that was 2 semester-long trips. And I also did a 2-week travel course with the College of Agriculture, Iowa State, to Spain. And so we went to Spain and traveled around the Catalonia region and learned more about their agriculture and olive growing and wine and livestock, that type of thing.
I love learning about wine.
Yeah. I like drinking it too. And then I'd say my biggest trip abroad, and it came about because I went abroad the first couple of times, I decided to apply for an opportunity for a year-long graduate plus volunteer or service learning trip abroad. And that is through the Rotary Foundation, Rotary International. And would not have been able to do that without the help of the staff members in the Study Abroad Center where I was working as an undergraduate.
Oh, sure.
I had to apply a year in advance, and I got placed in Hong Kong.
Oh,
very interesting.
Nice.
Had never been to Asia before. So I was there for an academic year. And while I was there, I studied at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, got my master's in anthropology.
Oh my gosh.
And while I was there, not only did I study, but I was able to learn about the culture. I lived with another American student who was on the same program as myself. And we did a lot of service work through Rotary, as well as a lot of presentations to different Rotary clubs and organizations to talk about Iowa and where we were from and to kind of just spread the word about the little state of Iowa, basically.
That's awesome.
So it was a wonderful experience. I knew it was something that I would regret if I didn't go through with it. I had contemplated, that's
a whole year in advance.
And it's a whole year abroad.
Yeah.
And it was a tough decision, but I knew I couldn't not go.
Right.
It would be something I would regret for the rest of my life.
It's not really an opportunity that you're going to get back very easily. So.
And it was a competitive application process. I was one of 3 individuals in the state of Iowa who were chosen for the opportunity. So I was pretty honored as well.
That's awesome. And your roommate was also from Iowa?
No, she's from Texas.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Whose name is also Ashley.
Oh, easy.
So it was the Ashley and Ashley show. But she was there with Rotary on the same scholarship that I was there on. And we connected through a network in Rotary and figured, hey, why not live together and that type of thing. So,
Perfect.
But after that, I came back to Iowa.
Yes.
And started working, this time at another college. I knew that higher education was somewhere I wanted to work. Specifically, I wanted to work in the international education field just because traveling, it just changed my life. And I wanted to really be able to do that same thing for other people, other students. And I got a job at Indian Hills Community College in Ottumwa, Iowa, first as a financial aid advisor just to kind of get me in the door. But then I found out about a year later they were starting an international program at Indian Hills. And so I don't want to say walked into the position, but kind of walked into the position.
That's super cool.
And that's what I currently still do as a career. And I don't work on the study abroad side of things per se. I mostly provide services to international students that come from other countries to study at the Indian Hills. But as part of my job, I've also been able to go overseas and recruit students to come to Indian Hills. And so as part of work, I went back to Asia. And I was in Thailand for a couple of days, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore.
Okay.
And got a couple of students. Woo, that was my first recruit trip. And then also did a week-long trip in Costa Rica, actually about 2 weeks. A 2-week trip in Costa Rica, but that was twofold. I was recruiting students, but I was also leading my very own study abroad program.
Oh, cool.
So that was that's a very, very small part of my current job is I help with the one study abroad program that we do offer at Indian Hills. That was really fun, actually. It was more of a medical trip, so we were doing a lot of hands-on in the healthcare area, orphanages, that type of thing.
Oh, wow.
But I was able to recruit for a couple of days and then lead that trip for the remainder. And then another trip I took for work, I did go to, I think it was 7 different countries in Central America and was able to recruit some students to Indian Hills.
We're getting ready to go to Central America.
Ooh, yeah.
So now tell us about your trip to outer space, because this is the one that I haven't heard about yet.
Yeah.
We are very...
Silas is just kidding.
Yeah. So
I wish.
the part of your story that you didn't include, that I want to remind you of, that I don't know if you remember, but while you were working at Iowa State as an undergrad assistant in the study abroad department, global ambassador, you were the one who helped set me up with my trip to Swansea. Because I walked into the office, I knew that you worked there because we'd been working together before that.
I remember this.
As peer mentors for another program.
Yep.
And I walked into the office. I remember this.
I'm like, you have to go abroad.
And you were like, you have to go abroad. And I was like, oh, all right. And I went into the office. I was like, oh, you're working. That's great. Where should I go? And you said, well, you asked me a few questions. And I said, really what I want to do is I want the cheapest program that you have that they still speak English in that country. And you said, oh, you want to go to Swansea? And I said, I do. And you said, yep, let me set you up with an advisor. And so you were the reason that I went there, which was...
Well, wonderful.
It was wonderful.
No, thank you for reminding me of that. I did, honestly, I did forget about that.
That's okay. It was pretty forgettable moment, actually.
But that's why I do what I do now in my field, is because I was able to start, I guess, I don't want to say changing lives, but it is life-changing. Yeah.
Ashley, changing lives.
Yes.
That's really cool. That's a very impressive travel resume, and anyone would be lucky to have traveled as often as you are. And I know we just had lunch before this, and you were talking about other trips that you want to take moving forward. And I just think that it's such an awesome lifestyle that you live, because a lot of people, I feel like, have this perception of travel is like the trips that you're taking are once in a lifetime opportunities, and you've had once in a lifetime opportunities. I don't know, you listed off like 15 different times now, which is really, really cool. And we want more people listening to feel like
you can make it not in every day, but like in every year part of your life to go somewhere incredible. And
Exactly.
Yep.
You make it a priority. I mean, I would much rather, we're settled now here in our home in Fremont, Iowa, and would much rather spend the money that we save on an experience rather than on a material possession, just because,
right.
I mean,
you can't take it with you.
No.
Yep.
I mean, experiences stay with you forever. Mm-hmm. And you'll have those memories. You learn something everywhere you go. Every time you go, it's a life-changing experience, and just something that you'll never have taken away from you.
Yep. It's really, really cool. One of the big barriers that we hear people talk about to travel is affording it, especially for longer trips. we have students who are study abroad students who are listening, and they will think it would be nice to study abroad, but I can't afford that because I'm already paying for college. But there are opportunities like your trip to Hong Kong. That can you just tell us a bit more about that experience and what your expectations were going into that, and just dive into that experience a bit more, because that is a really, really cool trip that you were able to take.
Yeah, so I first learned about this opportunity because I worked in the Study Abroad Center at Iowa State as an undergrad, and I had never heard of Rotary International Rotary Foundation, prior to looking into this opportunity. And again, I did apply a year in advance because it's a competitive process, and you have to have that. At the time when they had this scholarship opportunity, unfortunately, it's no longer a scholarship program through.
I was going to put a link in the show notes.
I'm sorry.
Well,
but
it's no skin off my back.
Yep. So it's called an ambassadorial scholarship. And it went for one more year after I had done my trip. And then I don't know why, but unfortunately they had to stop offering that opportunity, that specific opportunity. I know that Rotary offers other scholarship opportunities that are similar, but it's not the same program that I went on. So
okay.
It was $24,000 scholarship. Again, very competitive. All of the money was donated by Rotarians from my specific Rotary district. And so I'm very, very thankful to those people who were those donors, to be able to fund something like this. Again, there were 3 from my district that were able to go, that they chose. And I guess I wasn't really sure what to expect when I was actually leaving for the trip. I had a lot of support from Rotary. They had mentors and counselors that we were paired up with, but I'd never been to Asia before, Southeast Asia specifically. And here I am going to a new country and going to be living there for almost an entire year.
Yeah.
And it did give me a little bit more comfort in knowing that I was going to have, at least another Rotary scholar there with me. But I don't think that was a necessity at all. You always want to branch out. I don't think, whenever you think about going abroad, that's why when I went to Australia, I didn't want to go to somewhere where all of the Americans were going to. Sure. Because yes, that gives you comfort, but then it doesn't really allow you to, I guess, take in the culture as much, in my personal opinion, or to branch out and meet the locals as much, because you stay in that comfort zone. When you go abroad, you want to get out of your comfort zone. That's why you're there.
That was the biggest thing for me when I studied abroad in Swansea, was that I went there, and the first 2 weeks was an orientation course for students from America. And so, being from the United States, I ended up meeting dozens of other students from the United States, and then we were the only people that we really hung out with the entire time. We did make a couple of other friends that as a group we would go hang out with, but it wasn't a lot of one-on-one time with students from the UK. And then when I went back to do my internship there, I was the only person that I knew there, and I wasn't going with another group of students from the United States. And so I ended up meeting a lot more people and having a lot more meaningful experiences.
Exactly, because you were kind of forced to go out of your comfort zone and meet people. And those are some of the best friends you're ever going to meet as well. I mean, I still keep in contact with one of my friends, her and her husband in Australia. I was in her wedding. So I flew back to Australia to be in her wedding. She was in my wedding.
Oh, yeah.
And so she flew here to Iowa to be in my wedding. And we talk at least every month.
Yep.
That's my next. I want to take my husband to Australia. That's our next trip that I would like to plan for next year is take him to Australia, because that's really where it all began for me. And I'd say if I were to pick my favorite place in the world, other than home, Australia. And I don't know if it's because it was my first trip abroad, or maybe it was because it just had such an impact on me. And the people there are amazing, and the culture is wonderful, and they are a bit of a younger culture as well, but it's quite the experience.
Super, super cool. Moving right along, so I'm just looking at the time, and
I talk a lot.
You have, it's you.
And yes, Ashley talked a lot.
And yes, Ashley talked a lot. But you just have so many good stories. I want to make sure that we can get through a couple of these other questions.
Can I ask a question?
Please go ahead, Kayla.
Don't let Silas, steal the show. Jeez.
Well, I mean, usually he does run the show, because I don't. He's the one that pays attention to what our podcasts are about. and I just show up and talk.
Once
few
again,
times.
Kayla admitting that she does nothing
Yeah, I don't do anything for the
to
podcast.
prepare for this show.
No, but I was curious about how. I mean, Silas and I have talked on our podcast about how we both chose to study abroad for the first time and where and why. But Australia for the first time, I know you talked a little bit about specifically choosing Tasmania to get you out kind of off the beaten path. But I mean, what took you in that direction in the first place?
You know, I wanted to go somewhere English speaking. That way I could transition a little bit better.
Sure.
And I've always wanted to go to Australia. I don't know why. It just seemed like this faraway place that was so tropical. Because it is a little tropical in some areas.
Sure.
But it had so many different experiences. I mean, we took a train across the desert. I mean,
Oh, cool.
I mean, it was the outback. You know, it was just absolutely amazing. I mean, you have the outback, or you have a big city, or you have the outdoorsy activities where you could go, rock climbing or whitewater rafting, or you could go into the rainforest. So
wow.
it just had a whole bunch of different opportunities within itself. And I think just because it was really far away from home, part of it too. I mean, I'm literally halfway around the world from home. I think that's why.
Do you think you knew, like in high school, that you wanted to study abroad?
No. I don't know when I knew, I guess. I think it was probably beginning of college because, why not take part of something like this? This is an opportunity that, it's not every day that you may be able to take off 2 or 3 weeks from your work to be able to go do this, to go travel.
Exactly.
And when you're in college, hey, they have a whole semester, even a whole year opportunities where you can use your student loans to pay for it. And for some people, it's cheaper to study abroad than to study at your own institution, especially if you're an out-of-state student paying out-of-state tuition. And
or if you're at a private institution.
Yeah. So
I was going to bring that up earlier. And now there's so many study abroad scholarship opportunities.
Exactly.
So the one you did for grad school doesn't exist anymore, but there are lots of different scholarship opportunities for studying abroad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely cheaper, I think, than what most people think.
And it's not just, I don't think you just need to look at the money aspect as well. I mean, what are you going to get out of it? You're going to get a lot out of it. I think it's people always say this, it may sound kind of corny, but it's priceless. You're going to become so much more richer by doing something like this compared to how much money you're going to spend. I mean, truly, why not use a student loan if that's how you're paying for college? Why not use that student loan to pay for the tuition of another institution that has a partnership with your home institution?
Or scholarships that you already have.
Exactly. All of my scholarship money, I mean, I'll be quite honest, I graduated with less than $25,000 in debt.
Yeah.
And that was with a grad degree. Yep. High five.
And studied abroad.
Yeah. And studied abroad 4 times with less than $25,000 in student loan debt, which I ended up having paid off quite fast anyway because that was a goal. And my parents didn't help me. I did this all on my own.
Yeah.
Between scholarships, FAFSA money, your Pell Grant, your free money. I did take out some student loans.
Sure.
But I did all of this on my own, and it's doable.
It really is. And that's one of the big things that we always try to let people know is that you can take a trip and it can be affordable and it can work into your schedule. I mean, you can make time for it and you can make it affordable. And so don't be scared to look into it. I think a lot of people get stopped before they even begin the opportunity to try and check it out. So.
Plus, if you're getting college credit for it, you're not adding on any time to your college education.
Right.
Now, I decided to do 5 years at Iowa State. That was a personal choice for other reasons, but in no way did my study abroad experiences and trips add on to the time.
Right.
I just
Same for me, and I studied abroad my senior year.
Yeah, my 4th year I did study abroad too.
Yeah, so it was, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to do this trip, and I am going to come back, and I'm still going to graduate in 4 years. So.
Exactly.
Well, and I actually graduated early, even though I studied abroad.
Yeah.
So it's doable.
Yeah, it's definitely
a little
doable.
bit of planning.
It's doable, people.
Let's talk a little bit about people who maybe are past the point of studying abroad.
Okay.
Maybe some inspiration for those people.
For those people.
Okay.
What advice do you have for people who, I mean, traveling for business is becoming more and more regular, and your job is particularly unique because it is focused on international education, so there's already kind of this idea that it's going to be built into what you're doing. But there are a lot of my friends who have never traveled anywhere, and they get a job and they say, well, you're going to need to get a passport for this job because we want you to go to this country or that country because we have branches there and we want you to do work there for a while. So traveling
Sign me
for
up.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Traveling for business and for your job. Tell us more about those experiences and some of the pros and some of the cons or some of the struggles that you had.
I think traveling for business is a whole lot different than studying abroad. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
For my specific experiences, because again, for work, I would be recruiting students. And so we would either work with a specific company, like a third-party organization that we basically pay a lump fee to, and then they just set up everything for us.
Okay.
Or we would independently put something together, like work with a local colleague that we know in, for example, Costa Rica, who planned this trip for us, and we only paid $100 for. So it's quite a different experience for business than it is for pleasure. Now, you do have a day or two typically within, at least in my experiences, where I was able to relax a little bit and go out and see the sights, but sure. I was absolutely exhausted. I was looking forward to coming home actually just to get some rest, but it was truly another type of life-changing experience just because I would be doing things that I would have never normally have done had I been there as a tourist.
Oh, sure.
And so I think
such as
meeting random locals at a restaurant, or specifically with our group, or the company, the organization that we were working with would set like a trip up, and we went to like not that you would never do this as a tourist, because you would, but we went to like a coffee plantation. But there was just different experiences that we specifically had that I probably would not have been, I don't want to say brave enough, but I probably would not have done as a tourist, I guess.
Like if you were completely in charge of the trip, you wouldn't have planned certain things that were kind of planned for you.
Yeah, and I'm thankful that they did these things for us just because they obviously live there. They planned this opportunity, or these other opportunities outside of what we had for work. But
I think that's true, though, of whether you're traveling in the United States for work or you're traveling outside the United States for work. If you have a business trip and they've pulled together an activity or an opportunity to meet people, it's not something that you would have sought out if you were, you go to Chicago for vacation. You
go see the big sites, basically.
Right.
You do.
You're not going to necessarily have a coffee plantation tour of, or go to a local.
Or know the local coffee shop that has this amazing, I don't know, espresso or whatever.
Whatever it is.
Or this local pizzeria,
Sure.
I mean,
TripAdvisor can only get you so far.
Exactly.
So
that's why when you have travel bloggers, obviously they've been to many of the places.
Oh,
And like you guys are going to be taking this amazing trip to Central and South America.
Hopefully we'll be able to provide some good information.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Yeah. And so
yeah, but I think the point that you're getting at is that normally if you're only in Costa Rica for a week, you don't meet enough locals
Correct.
to have the information you need to go to kind of the right places on your own. And so it is sometimes about knowing people or being brave enough to meet people who can kind of point you in the right direction to have unique experiences that aren't on TripAdvisor's top 10 Costa Rica lists or whatever it is.
Going off the beaten path.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of true of organized travel in general, like regardless of whether it's business travel. Like when I went to Europe as a kid and that trip was all organized, I wouldn't have, and I was a kid, so I guess I wouldn't have planned it anyway, but I wouldn't have thought to go to half the places we went. I wouldn't have been interested.
Kayla might have planned it.
But in all seriousness, like there were things on the itinerary that didn't excite me, but I was part of a group of 50 people, so I didn't get the final say in everything that we did, of course.
It didn't excite you up front, but you did enjoy your experience after.
Some of them, surprised me and I enjoyed more than I thought I would, or some places I thought I would really like were underwhelming.
Yeah.
And maybe for a first-time traveler, especially if they didn't have the opportunity to study abroad, maybe an organized travel would make them feel more comfortable.
Exactly.
And so maybe that's something that first-time traveler can go do, and then, then they'll get that confidence, and on my next trip,
we just talked to, we had a podcast a couple of episodes ago with Chandrima, and she was in the same boat where she was doing travel for work only. And she'd done a couple of small trips, but hadn't really caught the travel bug. But she started doing trips for work. And she said, I realized that I needed to do more travel and make travel a bigger part of my life, because during those trips, I would just be sitting in the conferences for work stuff, thinking about how much longer until I can get out of here to go explore the city? And she ended up getting a job where she can do travel as it suits her and go to the places that she wants to go to. So anyway, I think that's some really good food for thought. The things that we wanted to move on, I have two kind of big questions here that they're not heavy questions, but two bigger questions before we get closer to wrapping up for this episode. But tell us in as many words as you would like.
Not sure you want to give me that that option, but okay.
What do you love most about travel?
Oh gosh, this is probably a standard answer: the experience. You know, my parents have never traveled outside the United States other than on a cruise when they went, and saw part of Mexico. Okay. And that was at least 15 or 18 years ago. And, and so when I had the opportunity to be able to start traveling as a study abroad student, they were very scared. They're very nervous for me because they didn't want to let go of their little girl. But the experience that I had that very first time of being on my own, learning about a new culture, and realizing that there's more to this world than just the United States of America. And, our culture, I mean, obviously we're a melting pot. We're made up of so many different cultures here. And being able to go back to, I guess, our roots of what we are made up of, I was able to travel in and around Europe. I went to Germany. I'm part German. I was able to go to Germany and spent a couple of days there, and just going out and learning about all those cultures in the places, at the locations where I guess America kind of came about. So experience, I guess, would be, and the food. Yeah. There it is. That's what I was waiting for. No, I like to eat.
I completely agree. The experiences that you gain from these trips, and we've talked about it recently too with our first anniversary. We went on a road trip.
Whoop, whoop.
But that wasn't outside the United States necessarily, but the experiences that we had there in exploring different parts of the state that we'd never been to.
Exactly.
You get these awesome memories, and you gain a lot of knowledge, and you get to try new things, different foods, and
I think one of the big things that we've talked about is how a lot of people want to say that travel means you have to go like a certain distance from home, or you have to be there for 2 weeks or whatever it is.
It could be a long weekend.
Yeah. Somewhere. It's like our anniversary, we were tight on cash and time off of work. And so it was just, I don't know, I took 3 or 4 days off of work maybe.
Yep.
And it was super fun. And we didn't spend hardly anything because I think we camped one night and it was just a road trip. So it was just a few nights in a hotel and some food and,
There's a lot of free things that you can do in many different cities, even here in Iowa or adjoining states. I mean, here 30 minutes from where I'm sitting right now is a town called Fairfield. Mm-hmm. They have so many different amazing ethnic restaurants, and you could spend 2 days there just exploring or,
eating your way around town.
Exactly. Trying different foods. I mean, that's a travel experience in itself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Iowa's a beautiful place. This is what I call my home, and I don't, if I could live anywhere else, it'd be Australia.
Yeah.
But other than that, Iowa's my home, and, we have been able to do a little bit of traveling around Iowa. Obviously, I would love to do more, and I think people need to make a priority to do it more just because it can be very affordable. You can make it as expensive or as affordable as you want.
Yep.
I mean, you don't have to stay in a 5-star hotel.
And generally, the closer you stay to home, the more friends you have that you could potentially stay with and save you more money.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I just want to make the point again that travel doesn't have to be a $2,000 flight or a 6-week vacation. I mean, obviously, it's great when you have that kind of time off of work or
that kind of budget,
or that budget, or freedom to travel and work on the road or whatever it is. But the best case scenario is when your work pays for you to travel.
Exactly. They even pay for your food.
So this next question that I definitely wanted to hit before we wrap up today is share with us 2, 3, a half dozen of your funniest / craziest travel stories.
I asked a different question.
Oh, shoot.
Well, we can ask another question after this if you. But I do love hearing these, and they don't have to be funny or crazy, but they could definitely be most memorable travel stories, whatever you can say without, incriminating yourself for.
One comes to mind
Okay.
particularly. So as you know, I lived in Hong Kong for almost a year, and during one of our breaks from school, we took a long weekend. We wanted to go to Beijing. That's a 24-hour train ride. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
And so me and my American roommate from Texas and three of our Chinese friends who happened to be living in Hong Kong, studying at the same school that we were at, we decided, let's plan a trip with the five of us.
Yeah.
So we took the train up to Guangzhou, China, southern part of a city in the southern part of China. However, that's the city where we needed to get on the big train to then go up to Beijing. Unfortunately, we missed our train.
Oh, no.
And the train was booked the next day. And we had bought a sleeper cabin. It didn't cost that much money, but we bought a seat or a bed in the sleeper cabin so we would be able to feel comfortable. You're going to be on this train for 24 hours. You're going to want to sleep.
Yeah.
So what did we have to do? Well, we had to stay the night in a local shank of a hotel, let's put it that way, and then get on a train with no seats the next day. It was booked out. There were no sleeper cabins. There were no seats.
You were standing room only.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. And you stood for 24 hours?
I sat on my luggage or stood for basically majority of that trip. And then as the train made stops, as we got closer, which was still a good at least 18 hours from where we started, there were some seats that did open up. We were able to sit down and at least shut our eyes. But it was quite the experience because you have these two American girls with three Chinese girls.
Yeah.
And it, and I don't want to put this in a bad way, but it was kind of like an exchange of cultures because you think of Americans having a lot of money. You do. When you're traveling, when people say it's an American, they think that you have a lot of money.
Well,
they do.
I think too. There's a common misconception of anyone who's traveling has a lot of money.
Yeah.
Oh, you came all the way from there. You must have a lot of money, and that's not always the case.
And so here we didn't even have seats on this train when you had other people from China who had had gotten the seats, and so it was just like a kind of a reverse of things. If and I don't mean that in a bad way, but
right, exactly. Yeah. People are sitting down going, why doesn't the white girl have it? Why didn't she buy a seat?
Exactly. So that was quite the experience. And then another one that comes to mind away.
But you did get to have the sleeper cabins on the way back. Or did you stand on the way back? Oh, you flew back.
Yeah, we just wanted to take the train up there, and then we ended up flying home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was already in the plan.
That was already the plan.
Should have gotten a round trip flight.
But Beijing, the Great Wall, is probably the most amazing thing I have ever seen. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I bet.
So my favorite place is Australia. The most amazing thing I've ever seen is the Great Wall. So anyone who has never been there needs to go. It's just massive. It's just wow. It's breathtaking.
I bet. I mean, how long is it?
I don't even know. But there's only certain sections that you can go up because other parts are kind of falling down and they're just deemed unsafe.
Sure.
So you can only travel to certain parts.
There are two parts you visit.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
well, yeah, you're not visiting the whole thing. It's
I
like
took
saying,
Sai with me.
I visited the entire.
Maybe a picture of Sai.
I visit all of the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, sure you did.
Yeah.
You took Sai,
I did take some pictures
Iowa State's
with Sai.
mascot.
Yeah. Woo. Another interesting story in Hong Kong that comes to mind right away was we went to this. So Hong Kong is a very Western meets Eastern culture.
Okay.
So you could be walking through Hong Kong Island and it literally looks like New York City.
Oh, wow.
But you can go out to some of the outlying islands and it's like you are in undeveloped area of the world.
Oh, sure.
And so we went out sightseeing to some outlying islands of Hong Kong and we saw these really neat field, like these hats, those pointy hats that they wear in the field. And so, hey, fun, you can get some pictures with them. Well, they had the writing in Chinese and English of saying, hey, you can get a picture. And in Chinese, it said, pay $1 for a picture. In English, pay $5 for a picture. So, that was just
sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to when you travel, some people just assume that you have money and that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just another interesting story. Oh, gosh. I have a lot of interesting stories, but I'm not even. Oh, another one. I was visiting my friend in the Peace Corps.
Okay.
So I was living in Hong Kong, went to Bangkok, which is during all of the riots. So when I was on this plane, there was like maybe 10 people in this huge airplane going into Bangkok. So I'm like, what am I doing here? Anyway, my friend meets me in Bangkok. We have to travel 8 hours by a little bus. A little bus, like not one of those big buses, but like a little 8-person bus. To
like
her
a van.
Yes, basically like a big 15-passenger van. Yeah. We travel 8 hours to her remote village. I don't remember the name of the little town, but she was living there for her 2 years of Peace Corps. And on my way back, so obviously my Peace Corps friend spoke the language.
Sure.
So I was fine.
Part of Peace Corps is learning the language.
Well, I hadn't thought about, how is Ashley going to get back to Bangkok? So I'm thinking, okay, do we book a flight? I just hadn't thought that far ahead. So I'm like, do we book a flight? What do we do? And we decide to, Ashley, you're gonna book a bus back. And I had to do some transfers though. So in a country where basically they don't speak English.
Yeah.
I had to maneuver getting from this little remote village that is 8 hours from Bangkok by a bigger bus. Partway back to Bangkok, switching at a bus station, had to figure out where am I going? How do I even know if I'm getting on the same bus or on the correct bus? And then had to get to another bus station in Bangkok, get a taxi to the airport, who then told me they did not have change for my money, which they probably did, but it's okay. I mean, I'm like, whatever, you just keep it.
At this point, I see the airport. I'm like, yes, I finally found the airport.
Just drop me off. So if my parents probably knew about some of these stories, they'd be like, Ashley, you're never traveling again. But it's those experiences that really, you look back and you laugh.
Well, you laugh and you look at how much you have grown as a person.
Exactly.
Like, I didn't know that I could handle this. I didn't know that I could put up with something like this or navigate a situation like this.
Also, thank God I'm still alive. Like,
Yeah.
I have some of those stories too.
So
on a recent podcast, we had another friend on, and she took her 7-week-old kiddo to Rome with her, to Italy with her.
Yeah.
And she said that for a family wedding, and it was just it should have been a very chill trip with very little obstacles or hurdles to overcome, except then she was bringing her 7-week-old along. And she said in that podcast that or maybe afterward, but she said that she did grow a lot as a person and felt that she said, I didn't realize that I was able to put up with some of the things that I had to, some of the situations, like she was dragging her stroller through the airport, and she said I almost missed flights because they said, oh, you can take that on the plane. And I got to the gate and they said, no, you can't. So I had to run it back and get it checked again and then run back. And all this with a baby in her arms the entire time. So you do learn a lot about yourself and what you're capable of. Well, and she was
alone too. Her husband didn't go on the trip with her.
Yeah. Incredible
difficult
stuff.
Situations you have to just deal with sometimes. And you get through it eventually. I mean, you somehow get through it.
You figure it out one way or another, right?
Exactly.
Yep. Let's get some advice before we wrap up today.
Because Ashley is
an expert traveler.
Ashley travels a lot. So anyone out there who's considering studying abroad or who is planning to study abroad but has got some anxiety going, what advice do you have for them in terms of, just being willing or ready to kind of pull the trigger and say, yes, like this is an experience I want to have?
I would utilize your university or your college's study abroad center. I mean, just as Silas did. I mean, they are the experts. They've done it before. So any questions that you might have, they'll be able to answer for you. And if that specific person can't answer it for you, they'll find someone who can. Because again, this isn't something that you can't afford to not do it.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Hopefully I said that right. I think, you
I'll
you have
cut it
to
out
go.
if it doesn't make sense.
Okay. But, again, you come back so much richer with this type of experience. So go.
Yeah.
Number one, you make the time to go on a trip like this.
That makes me think, I've literally never talked to anyone who had a bad study abroad experience.
It's always,
it's always like, this was life-changing for me. Or maybe it was a little bit difficult, but I learned a lot. I grew a lot.
And they'll prep you. I mean, you usually do a pre-departure orientation before you go anyway. And so any other last-minute questions that you have or anxiety, they'll be able to ease that anxiety or that fear that you might have, because they're going to prepare you for what you could, potential situations or problems that might arise. They're going to prepare you for that.
Yeah. And I think, too, that there were moments while I was studying abroad that I thought, I don't like this. I'm not comfortable. I'm not happy.
Culture shock.
Culture shock. Yep, exactly. And when I got home, I was like, that was no big deal. What was I complaining about? Like, I got to do all these other things, and I had all these awesome opportunities and met all these amazing people. And so up front, do know that there are going to be moments that are going to be difficult, but that's the same as if you were staying at your home institution.
Exactly.
There are going to be moments of your semester that you're not happy with. I mean, think back, if you've already had a year of college under your belt, think about your first year and say, what moments weren't fun? And then recognize that there are going to be moments that aren't fun while you're studying abroad, but there are going to be so many more moments that are amazing that it is totally worth it. So
Exactly. Advice number 2, packing.
Yes, let's hear
I
this.
overpacked my very first trip. I swear. I mean, I took way too much stuff. Not even thinking, just because I was not a seasoned traveler at that time. I'd never done it before. This is my guinea pig trip. You can always, if you lose something or if you forget something, you can always buy it.
There are stores everywhere.
Exactly. And of course, you are going to go shopping. You
Yep.
are going to buy things. And I took way too much stuff, and I probably brought back too much stuff too. But, whenever, and I've even learned this, if you just think that you might wear it, you're probably not going to wear it.
Yeah.
Whatever you pack, take half of it out.
Yep. Good advice.
So,
And there might be a couple of places in the world where girls might want to bring like feminine products, or
I have a story about that too.
Or like, I've heard certain places like the toothpaste here is funny. So if you really are like, you need to have your Colgate mint flavor, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's something, do a quick search online. Like, I'm going to this country, like what should I bring? And likely someone out there has already gone and realized that they don't have your favorite brand of shampoo or whatever it is. Like if you have like that kind of comfort product that you don't ever flex on brand, or if you love music and you want to bring something, or you have your favorite sweater, like bring those things, but don't worry about
Bringing everything.
flip-flops or
Yeah.
a swimsuit, for
can always
every
buy
day
it.
of the week. You can, if you're going somewhere where they're swimming, there will be swimsuits.
I've just stopped buying underwear,
Yeah.
taking underwear in general, because I can just pick it up at the store and throw it away when I'm done with it.
Shut up, Silas.
That works. Or a care package from family.
Yeah.
And my mom would send me one every month or so, and it's like $40 for one of those international boxes that are medium size box and with no weight limit. So I mean, if it's really something that you need, hey mom, put that in my next care package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
So-
cool. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've had fun too, and talked a lot.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. But that's our show. As always, we ask that you leave any questions you have in the comment section below, or if you have a specific question, feel free to email us directly or connect with us on social media. Our email address is kaylaandsilas@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest by searching Kayla and Silas. We're also on iTunes. If you listen on iTunes and would leave us a review, that would be great, because it helps other people find our show. Once again,
We're Kayla.
and Silas, wishing you luck with your upcoming adventures. Goodbye.
See ya.